Hello, everybody. Welcome along to SportsBet TV, where we've got a really terrific 4 days of racing ahead of us at the Yorkhill Festival. This is Paul Alster with you, and as always, I've been putting my mind towards trying to find some decent prize winners. It's not always easy, as I'm sure you know, but over the seasons and the 3 years that we've been doing the service, it's proved highly profitable for those that are patient and wait for those big strikes to come along. If you happen to be new and joining us for the first time, please press the subscribe button just below this screen. And I'm offering you two selections here, one for the opening day on Wednesday and one for Thursday's action. But if you want to host more of tips that I have for you across many more races at the Ebor Festival, then certainly do consider joining me at Out in Front, hosted by the Patreon service, and the link to that service for you to sign up is just below this screen in the description area. So have a think about that. I'm going to take you straight on to the first of the two selections. Now, we're starting the meeting on going that is forecast good to firm, good in places. So on the quick side, we don't know how it's going to go through the week because there's forecast of some pretty nasty weather set to come in, possibly into Thursday or Friday, with the back end of that storm that was in America making its way across the Atlantic and hitting Britain. So there could be quite some ground changes before we get to the Ebor on Saturday. But on Wednesday, the opening race of the meeting is the 150. It's a heritage handicap over 5.5 furlongs, a sprint, and they're betting around 8-1 the field at the time of this recording, which is a little bit after 7:30 in the evening on Tuesday. And basically the 8-1 the field tells its own story. A really tough, good quality sprint handicap. To some degree, we're in the dark as to how fast the track is, or if there is a draw bias at the moment. But it's the same story for the bookies, so we're all in the same boat. Most of the runners have a decent chance of winning if things drop right for them, and you always need that little bit of luck and the rubber, the green, when you're competing in 20-runner sprint handicaps. I'm going to focus on just a few of the runners who I think are those to really set your mind to. Now, although this race is open to 3-year-olds and upwards, there haven't been that many to actually have a crack at it, and none of them have managed to make any real impression. And in fact, I'm not sure there's been a 3-year-old placed in the last 10 years. JM Jungle, though, for John Quinn, who's having a fantastic month, is a really progressive 3-year-old, and he's won his last 2 races on very different types of ground. He's up now to a mark of 92, and he's drawn high in stall 19. Don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but you certainly can't rule him out. He's up there, prominent in the betting. It's a tough task, and he would have to be really quite exceptional, I think, if he's going to win as a 3-year-old against very good older sprint handicappers. Now, amongst the older sprint handicappers, Michael Wigham has one called Intrinsic Bond, who's been in really good form of late. And he's already been backed from around 10-1 to 8-1. And he won at Ascot over 5 furlongs in really good style in late July. And he ran well in defeat in the Showgirl Cup sprint just a few weeks ago when finishing second, and is now on a career high mark of 99. I think there's another bold display on the cards, especially with Oisin Murphy having been booked. Now, Yorkshire's own Tim Easterby loves having meetings nowhere more than the Ebor Festival, and he actually won this very race 2 years ago with the admirable Copper Knight, who's going to try again and repeat the feat. But I think it's his other runner, the up-and-coming Manila Scouse, who could do best of his pair, and this one is bidding for a hat-trick after recent wins at Haydock and Chepstow. Now, he's gone up in the weights, of course, and he's done all his winning on easy ground, so he has it to prove on the faster surface, but you kind of feel that Tim probably wouldn't run him if he didn't think the horse was going to handle this kind of ground, so he should be right in the mix. Now, I don't need to tell you what a great season Julie Camacho's been having with Shaquille, the top sprinter in Europe, but she's got other good sprinters, and Mackinac is a very capable sprinter on his day. He was only beaten 2 lengths when 4th in Newcastle's Gosforth Park Cup at the end of June behind Vintage Clarets, who's going to reoppose here today. Now, that run was off a £3 higher mark it was 2 starts ago on his penultimate start. Now, the heavy ground, you'd have to say, was all against Mackinac last time out in the Stewards Cup, and I think we can ignore that run. And he's actually handicapped to go well on a track and a trip. I think that will suit him. Of the others, well, Corker for Carl Burke, another Yorkshire trainer. Very tough, classy, consistent sort of sprint handicapper. He's gone close on his last 2 starts. He was second in that Gosforth Park Cup behind Vintage Clarets, and then he was second again in a decent event at Ascot last time. He's also won on the Knavesmire before, and that should stand him in very good stead here. I think he's going to be right in the mix and on the premises once more at York. But my selection here on what will be his 38th career start is the Charles Hills trained Equilateral, who is the mount of Jamie Spencer, no less, and he runs in a handicap on his 38th start for the very first time. This is having plied his trade at a very high level for the last 6 seasons. He's an 8-year-old. He's won 7 races, including 2 listed successes. He's also won a Group 2 in Meydan in Dubai, and of course, memorably, he chased home the mighty Batage when second in the Group 1 King's Stand Stakes at Royal Ascot 3 years ago. Now, he's held his form very well over the last few seasons, and some of these sprinters can go on to a pretty ripe old age. He ran very well this season at Royal Ascot, finishing 5th behind Bradsell in the King's Stand Group 1 again, and he was having his that was his second on his 2 previous starts. Prior to that, he was second in a listed race behind Regional, who I think he's going to go for the Nunthorpe Stakes later on in the week. And he was also second in the Group 2 Temple Stakes at Haydock. So even though he might not be quite as good as he was in his pomp, he's still a very good sprinter. Now, he wouldn't have enjoyed the really testing ground when disappointing at Goodwood last time. That was in the Group 2 King George Stakes, but he's got his ideal underfoot conditions here. His draw in stall 12 is towards the centre, and I think that gives Jamie Spencer plenty of options. And after so long in his career, knocking his head against a brick wall, taking on great horses like Batage, Highfield, Princess, and so many others, here he is running in a handicap. Yes, he has top weight of 9 stone 12, but I'm hopeful that Equilateral will run a very big race here. First time in this sphere, and at current odds of around 10 to 1 each way for 6 places with the likes of Sporting Index, the Betfair Sportsbook, William Hill amongst others, I think Equilateral is one to have on your side, and hopefully he's going to really appreciate the drop in class. And then to my second selection for you, which is going to be on Thursday. Now, as I say, there could be some weather moving in, but I'm basing my selection on the forecast ground of good to firm. If it's good, it wouldn't be a problem. There are 20 runners in the York 3 o'clock, the 1 mile Clipper handicap. And I'm certainly not picking easy races here for my selection. This is another 20 runner handicap. And as you would expect for a race worth 150,000 quid, there are some really good and classy sorts bidding for the prize money, including an unexposed horse trained by Roger Varian, who's the current 6 to 1 favourite, a 4-year-old called Aku Najla, who was 4th last time out in a decent mile handicap, and that was on his first run for 10 months. Now, the thing about this horse is his breeding. He cost 2.7 million guineas and is a half-brother to the 2,000 guineas winner Galileo Gold. So he's bred to be a really star performer. It doesn't mean he's going to be, of course, but he's certainly got some very good blood coursing through his veins. And when he ran at York as a juvenile, he won by 6 lengths in his maiden, so the course certainly will suit him. He's obviously had his issues in the interim, but he would likely have needed that first run after 10 months, and he could potentially be ahead of his current mark. So the bookmakers have priced him up at the head of the market at 6 to 1. He's got to prove it, though, that he's over whatever was ailing him. And so we'll have to wait and see. Now, of the remainder, a lot of these have been taking each other on in recent times. For example, the Gatekeeper, Dutch Decoy, Darkness, and Sunny Liston were 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th behind Johan in the Goodwood's Golden Mile a few weeks ago, earlier this month, and they all have a chance under very different underfoot conditions this time. While the likes of Blue For You, Racing Breaks Rider, and Eileen Douve were all further down the field that day, they would have been less suited by the testing ground, and it wouldn't surprise to see any of those bounce back. In particular, Blue For You, who's trained by David O'Mara and won this very race last year. He now, however, races off a £9 higher mark, but he again showed his liking for York when winning over the mile at the John Smith meeting in July, before running below par, as I say, in the Golden Mile. So he could very easily bounce back at a course that seems to bring out the best in him, Blue For You. Now, he has a lot of weight, but he's not out of it, nor is Northern Express, trained by Michael Dodds, who finished very well into 7th in this last year, or a good old favourite of mine, Albarn, another one trained by David O'Mara, who was 4th in this very race 12 months ago behind Blue For You, and has been running very well again of late without getting the rub of the green. But I'll come on to my selection for Thursday, York 3 o'clock, and this in a really tough race. The horse I'm interested in is the horse who at last year's meeting won. He was first past the post. His name is Master Richard. He's trained by Anne Duffield, and Oisin Murphy has been booked to ride. Now, there was a lot of controversy with this horse at this meeting last year. He was involved in a real ding-dong battle in the 3-year-old mile handicap with a horse of Ed Bethel's called Point Linus, and the 2 meet again here. They had a real set to, and they crossed the line virtually inseparable. It was really right on the wire. There was a nose between them. And in the end, the stewards decided to reverse the placings, which was very controversial. And subsequently, the connections of Master Richard appealed to the Jockey Club stewards, and the decision was overturned on appeal, and they awarded the race back to Master Richard. So a lot of history, I wouldn't say needle, but some history between Master Richard and Point Linus. But what we know is that both these horses go really well at the track. Indeed, Point Linus was a very good second at the May meeting this year at York. But back to Master Richard, who won this race last year. I don't think there's going to be much between the pair this time, but he is £3 better off with Point Linus, and I think the booking of Oisin Murphy for Anne Duffield is very, very significant. It's a real eye-catcher. And to be fair, Master Richard didn't run his race at the main meeting, but he came back after being given a 3-month break, so clearly something wasn't quite right, and I thought he ran a cracker at Newmarket last week. He was beaten just half a length by the very tough Guido, and I think that signified that he's right back to his best. Now, they've also popped cheek pieces on for the first time. And with Murphy booked and back at the scene of his big win at this time last year, I think 20 to 1 each way for 6 places with the likes of Bet365 and William Hill gives Master Richard a really good chance of earning us a profit. And I can see him coming out on top in what's going to be a fantastic race. So that's Master Richard, 20 to 1 each way for you in the 3 o'clock at York on Thursday. I'll be back on Thursday with my selections for Friday and indeed for Saturday. Friday the Nunthorpe, Saturday the Ebor day, of course. I wish you the very best of luck. Keep a weather eye out, because things could really change, as they have so many times this season, in what's been a very, very difficult season to predict the ground and, of course, predict winners with it. But whatever you back, I wish you the best of luck. And if you are interested for more extensive selections, and certainly things have been going well over at Out in Front, check the link on the Patreon link just below this screen in the description box. Bye-bye for now.